How would you describe what you did to the viewer?
Well, I mean, I printed a bunch of money. I mean, I saw it as like, I mean, obviously I was kind of in a financial predicament to kind of cause me to start doing it, really. But I had been printing off and on since I was like 19.
Oh, shit.
So, you know, when I basically lost my job and had a wife and kids and all that, you know, I just needed to make money fast. So I kind of went back to that. And I made it like a point to print like obviously the highest quality I could, but like I studied and read a bunch of stuff and, you know, practiced trial and error around until I had, you know, some pretty good quality bills, I'd say.
Printing money, at least in my head, is such a crazy crime to even commit, because how do you get into that? Like, how do you first decide, like, oh, I'm going to try printing money?
I mean, for me, it just seemed like obvious. Like, you know, everybody does all this crazy shit to make money. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's just like everybody strives to make as much money as they can, but really all it is like a piece of paper. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's, you know, the easiest way to get it, I mean, I thought at that time was to just, you know, make the piece of paper.
Make it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and like with printing technology, inkjet printers and stuff, like everything's pretty advanced. So it's like, and I know graphic design, so like that definitely helped. That's nowadays that's like, you know, 60% of the whole process is getting the digital files, like really, you know, high resolution and stuff. So yeah, I mean, just it took a couple months to mess with the files and get really high resolution stuff, but after that it was, you know, just printing, you know what I mean? But
was there a point where you had tried to stop selling, or was that something you had just kind of consistently done throughout your life when you were younger?
I mean, it was just like kind of I've always been like an opportunist. So it's like, I never really considered myself like 100% drug dealer. It was just, you know, I knew a lot of people, and when any drug, any opportunity to make money came across, you know, I'd take it. So if something, you know, somebody had an ounce of Coke for cheap, I'd, you know,
you see
sell
the opportunity in that.
Yeah, I'd pick it up and sell it until that was gone or the connection was gone or whatever, and then just move on to the next thing or whatever. So it wasn't so much about like selling one drug. It was just looking for opportunities. And then that's where like the money thing came in. It's like, you know, once I realized I could do that, you know, I stopped selling drugs and went that route, you know.
So the counterfeit money is specifically what made you stop selling drugs. That was more lucrative?
Well, back then, no, it was all about just opportunity. Like I said, like, so when I was 19 and started counterfeiting a little bit, I only did that for like 6 months. Because a buddy of mine, his dad, like basically a friend of mine said he knew somebody that would buy him. The bills. So I was basically like, he was middlemaning it, you know what I mean? So I never met the guy. I later found out he was selling them to his father. But you know, he was getting them from me and selling them. And we went and did that about 6 months, and then he overdosed and died.
Oh, shit.
So when he passed away, it was like, you know, I didn't have anyone to sell them to. So then I just kind of stopped doing it. And, you know, I was real paranoid about counterfeiting at that time. And, you know, doing it for 6 months, I made probably like 50 grand or whatever. And then he passed away, and I just kind of felt like on to the next hustle. You know what I mean?
Do you remember the first batch of counterfeit bills you made?
Yeah, they looked horrible. Yeah.
What was that process like? Are you able to describe it?
Well, the first time I tried it, I was probably 17 or 18 or something, and yeah, it was just like printing them on regular printer paper, and you know what I mean.
It feel right or anything?
Yeah, I mean, the first time you try it, I was basically a kid, you know, just experimenting. It wasn't until I kind of like started reading, like I read that book, The Art of Making Money, and that's about a counterfeiter, you know, back in the day, Art Williams. And it, like, in that book, it briefly kind of goes over his process. And then that kind of opened my eyes to, like, actually trying to like crack security features and like replicate them and stuff. And it was just a trial and error process, basically. Like, you can read little bits on the internet about, like I've read, so a lot of people say like spray the bills with hairspray and it marks, which like I've tried that. It always turned out like glossy, and it didn't look good and whatever. So like, but the spray can thing was a good idea. And then I found lacquer, like a flat matte lacquer spray, and that worked way better than hairspray. So it's like, you read little bits on the internet or whatever, and then you kind of morph them your own way and
build upon it.
Yeah, kind of like figure out this recipe or whatever. And later on, when I started counterfeiting again, I lost my job, so I was like, and I had a wife and kids at home. The lease was almost up in our house, so I was kind of like more desperate to, make a lot of money fast.
What were you doing for work?
I was a sign serviceman. Like, I worked for a sign company.
Oh, shit, okay.
Fixing big signs and LED boards and stuff.
Nice.
I ended up wrecking a truck.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, basically just lost my job. But, like, the sign industry is how I got into graphic design. So, like, when I was younger and I counterfeited, I didn't really know graphic design. So, after getting into the sign industry and learning graphic design some, then I kind of realized the importance of, like, the digital files. And that's when the bills looked better and better,
So that job kind of gave you a lot of knowledge that you were able to transfer over to make better bills.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you think if you hadn't worked that job before, if you hadn't had that experience in graphic design, you would have been able to figure it out?
I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, obviously, knowing graphic design is super important in that process. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
A bunch of people always, like, hit me up or whatever, being like, oh, like, how do you do it? To tell me how to counterfeit or whatever. But it's like, if you don't know graphic design and you know what I mean? It's like, you can't, I don't know. You can't just learn graphic design in like a couple days to print money or whatever. It's like, it's a long process. But
was there ever anyone back in the day who like you passed your knowledge along to who did know graphic design?
No, I don't think so.
Something you got to keep with you.
I mean, there are some people that kind of facilitated and helped me in the process, but I think they've moved on with their lives as well. So
doing other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like for a while you were just kind of trying to live a normal life and not, commit crime. You had a family to worry about.
Yeah, for sure.
And once you lost your job, I mean, that must have been pretty terrifying.
Yeah. That's why I moved to Knoxville, was to kind of get away from like the craziness in Florida. The last like year I was in Florida, like I went to like 10 funerals the last year because everybody was getting killed or overdosing, and just Florida was getting out of control. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I had met this girl, and the kids and all that. Like, it's like I wanted to settle down.
Yeah, you got a family to worry about.
Yeah,
now.
Exactly. So we moved to Knoxville because her mom lived in North Georgia and my parents lived in East Tennessee. So it was like Knoxville was just closer to family or whatever. So, we moved up there. I got off pills, you know what I mean, for a while.
Yep.
And just tried to live a normal life, but it sucks you back in every now and then,
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to resist that appeal, especially when you're able to make money really fast, Yeah. It's like, fuck. So you lose your job. You decide pretty quickly by the sounds of it, I got to make some counterfeit money. Yeah,
I mean, like my first go-to thought was to sell drugs because that's kind of what I've always done, like more so than counterfeiting. But in Knoxville, it's like I had known a few big drug dealers, but I didn't know very many like users to sell it to. You know what I mean? So like, I thought it would take a long time. Like one of my good friends was like a big drug dealer. I had access to like large quantities of drugs for cheap, but just to find the people to sell them to, you know what I mean?
It's a whole different story.
Yeah, it would have taken like months to actually start making money with that. So, and like I considered robbing a bank like all of it. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
shit.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was like when it comes down to like me and my kids being homeless, it's like,
Of course.
yeah, that's not an option. Like
When you
that's
got
not
kids on
gonna
the line,
happen.
that's a whole different ball game. We're hitting
Yeah,
the
no.
bank up.
I mean, I considered it, but yeah, I mean, the counterfeiting thing obviously turned out to be, that was the safer option, I thought. So I went that route instead. But